Sometimes life just hands you a scene so unreal, so intensely cinematic, you think you're watching a movie. But I promise you, this was just a grim Monday morning in Stonebridge, and it changed everything. We were saying goodbye to Officer Jax Riley, a good man, a real hero, and the chapel was packed, all stone and stained glass, smelling like lilies and damp sorrow. The kind of silence that doesn't just fall, it presses down on you. Jax's widow, Clara, was sitting in the front, small and utterly hollow, clutching the folded flag like it was the only thing tethering her to this world. And then there was Hank. Hank was Jax's canine partner, a massive German shepherd, all black and tan, the kind of dog that looks like pure, focused gravity. He was supposed to be grieving, right? Just a loyal dog missing his best friend, but from the minute the service started, something was wrong. He wasn't whining, he wasn't moping. He was tense, sitting rigid at the foot of the mahogany casket. His ears were flickering like radar, his eyes locked on that gleaming wood, not in sadness, but in a kind of burning, terrifying focus. I watched him because I knew those dogs. I was a handler myself for 10 years before I went into administration, and I thought, okay, Hank's just having a hard time. But the second Father Michael started the final benediction, Hank snapped. It started as a low, guttural growl, barely audible over the organ's soft hum, a sound like tectonic plates shifting underground. And then he was on his feet, tail stiff as rebar, ears fully erect, his body a coiled spring. He took 2 steps, claws clicking sharply on the marble, and everyone froze. You could feel the collective frowns, the uneasy whispers starting to ripple through the chapel. What's wrong with the dog? Get him out. Clara looked back, her tear-streaked face softened with a desperate, exhausted pity. Easy, boy, it's okay, she whispered, thinking it was just grief erupting. But it wasn't grief, not even close. Hank didn't move for her, didn't even acknowledge the uniformed officer who reached out to pull him away. He was a statue of pure, aggressive intent, nose inches from the casket. And then it happened. One sharp, authoritative bark that ripped through the silence like a gunshot, echoing off the stone walls. The organist's hands actually lifted from the keys. Another bark followed, louder, more frantic, and now he was scratching, his nails scraping click, click, click against the highly polished wood, tearing at it like he was trying to dig his way through to the other side. The priest stopped, Bible trembling, and chaos was brewing. You could see the honor guard shift uneasily, looking at each other. Who takes the dog? It was just bad form, disrespecting a hero. Then Sergeant Leo Maxwell, a crusty veteran who'd seen everything, stood up from the second row, his face a roadmap of hard-earned suspicion. Leo had trained with Jax and Hank for years. He knew their language better than his own wife's. He marched right up to the front, ignoring Clara's silent plea and the funeral director's frantic head shakes. He crouched down slowly, lowering himself to Hank's level. "Talk to me, buddy," Leo said softly, stretching out a hand. Hank stopped barking for a breath, his chest heaving, his eyes burning into Leo's. Then he let out a short, fierce whine and slammed his nose hard against the base of the coffin, the K9 alert signal. It's the unmistakable, non-negotiable command, and Leo felt his blood run cold. This wasn't mourning, this was detection. Leo didn't hesitate. He leaned in, pressing his ear against the cold wood. At first, nothing but the humming air and the frantic thudding of his own heart. Then, faint, almost imperceptible, he heard it. A fragile, rhythmic sound, tap, tap, tap. It was so slight, so impossible, Leo almost dismissed it as a trick of his mind. But it was there, a soft, muffled sound, like a tiny heartbeat struggling against the silence. He jerked back up, eyes wide, turning to the funeral director. "Open it," Leo commanded, his voice raw and firm. The director stammered, "Sir, we can't, the family." But before he could finish, Hank barked again, sharp and decisive, as if giving the final, terrifying order. The chapel exploded in whispers, a nervous, terrified hum. Leo didn't care about decorum anymore, only about that fragile sound he'd heard. "I said, open it now," he roared, cutting through the noise. The director, pale and shaking, reached for the lid's brass handle, his hands hovering, completely torn between procedure and the terrifying, commanding urgency of a dog that knew a truth they didn't. The moment was suspended, a breath held by 50 people who knew, deep down, that the impossible was about to happen. The air in that chapel turned to electricity, didn't just feel thick, it felt alive. The funeral director's hands were shaking so badly on the handle, he couldn't even lift it, and Clara was just staring, swaying on her feet, the grief on her face slowly, agonizingly, morphing into a desperate, fragile hope. "Michael," she whispered, her voice cracking, "what if it's just the wood?" And Hank, God bless him, just whined, pushing his head against the wood, urging them on, his tail starting to give a tiny, almost imperceptible flick. Leo didn't wait for the director. He grabbed the edge, knuckles white against the mahogany, and he lifted. The hinges squeaked like a scream, and as the lid rose, revealing Jax's perfectly pressed uniform beneath the folds of the flag, the scent of cedar and lilies was suddenly mixed with something else. Warmth. Faint, living warmth. Everyone gasped when they saw it. A tiny, frantic movement, barely a twitch, beneath Jax's folded hands. Hank let out a triumphant, urgent bark and placed his paws on the lower edge of the coffin, peering inside. Leo shone his tactical light into the dimness, and that's when his throat seized up. There, curled tightly against Jax's still chest, tucked securely beneath the crisp uniform jacket, was a newborn puppy. Tiny, matted, trembling, but breathing, alive. The silence that followed was total, a kind of holy shock. Clara crumpled, sinking to her knees beside the casket, tears pouring out. But this time they were tears of awe, not just grief. Leo reached in with infinite care and lifted the fragile bundle of fur. Hank immediately lowered his head, giving the pup a soft, tender lick to the ear, the kind of gentle acknowledgement that said, "Mission accomplished." But Hank wasn't done. He pulled his head back and pushed his nose again, not at the puppy's spot, but lower, near the lining of Jax's jacket pocket. Leo frowned, thinking, what now? He carefully shifted the fabric, and there it was, a small, creased piece of paper, folded, tucked neatly under Jax's hand. He slid it out. The handwriting, Jax's strong, slightly slanted script, was unmistakable. On the outside, for words that sent a chill through the entire room. "If anything happens to me." Clara took a slow, trembling step forward. "Read it," she whispered. Leo's voice was thick with emotion as he unfolded the note, the paper crackling faintly, like Jax's voice returning from the quiet. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. I lived a life I'm proud of, not because I was brave, but because I had people worth protecting." He paused, swallowing hard, and continued, revealing the depth of their secret. "You need to know something. 3 days ago, during the blizzard, Rex wouldn't stop pacing. He knew something I didn't. We found her, a stray German shepherd, weak, starving, and pregnant, sheltering behind the precinct. She wouldn't leave my side. The mission went bad, and I had no time to send her away, no time to tell anyone. If you found her pup, then you found proof that Rex never stopped protecting life. He stayed because he knew she'd need someone. He stayed because loyalty doesn't die. It just changes form." Leo's voice cracked on the final lines. "Please, take care of them. Both of them. They're my last mission. My final promise." The letters settled back into the casket, a declaration of a promise kept. Hank leaned into Clara's touch, his eyes finally calm, his tail giving a soft, satisfied thud against the marble. The dog wasn't barking in grief. He was delivering a message. He was guarding hope. The name Clara gave the tiny pup, a tiny, living symbol reborn from the place of death. The department decided, unanimously, that Hope and Hank would stay together, a living, breathing mission statement. So, yeah, that's the story. Jax Riley, a hero, had a final mission, and his partner, Hank, kept that promise even when his partner couldn't. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? About the kind of loyalty that transcends life and death, the silent duties we agree to, and the impossible things a good heart, human or canine, will do to protect the innocent. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Hank's intense behavior was solely driven by loyalty and duty, or do you believe dogs can sense the spiritual presence of their humans? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about miracles found in the quiet corners of our world.